What's up, guys? So I've gotten a ton of questions on how I got so high up on the leaderboard. I've gotten these questions in Discord and random games when I join because it says a champion is joined, and pretty much people are just asking me a ton on how I got to such a high rank. So in this video, I'm going to go over exactly what I did, what I would do differently if I could start back over, and what I think you should do. So firstly, you're definitely going to need a good element. I mean, to get top 100, you need to be putting out a bunch of damage. You can't really be doing that with like water or ice or gravity. You're going to need to roll and try to get a good element. If you can, get a mythic. Those are going to be the abilities. Like everybody in the top 100, probably every single one of them is using a mythic. So try to get your hands on a mythic. But if you can't, I would say something like light would be an okay alternative, especially since light is really easy to get, 25% chance. So, wait for like this type of roll right here, like where Reaper and Light are both in, and roll when they're both in. So if you don't get Reaper and you get Light, at least it's like, it's whatever. This meta might change, but to really grind damage, you're going to want a really, really good ability that's great for doing infinite runs, and that just puts out a lot of damage. So go for a mythic. Secondly, you're going to want to level a bunch, like a lot, because that's going to determine how much damage you can put out, as well as your element level. Like you can see mine's max and my level's max, so I can do pretty much as much damage as one person could be doing. So grind your level a bit. You don't need to get max, but you need to at least hit the point where you can do Snow Infinite, because right now Snow Infinite is the meta way to gain damage. Now, it's not the only way, but it is the meta way, and it's also the fastest way to get damage. This might change as of the next update, because when they release the next dungeon, they might also give Atlantis an infinite, and if they do that, Atlantis will probably now become the meta for grinding damage, like Atlantis Infinite, if they add that. But at the moment, it's Snow Castle Infinite. So you need to at least be 110 to really start gaining good damage and actually climbing the leaderboards if you want to get to a rank like top 100 or maybe even top like 500. Now that you have a good element and you're a decent level, hopefully at least 110, I can show you where like actually the damage is. Now that you're a little prepared to better go for damage. The best damage is going to be in either Snow Castle Infinite. It's either, if not Snow Castle Infinite, Atlantis Hard, or the limited time Halloween event. These three spots, in that order as well, are the three best. So Snow Castle Infinite is the best one, and then Atlantis Hard is the second, and then the Halloween event is the third best. Now, the reason why I say also if you want to grind, you can also grind Atlantis Hard and the Snow Castle, or not Snow Castle, but the Halloween event, is because the Halloween event, you can get a lot of damage if you have 4 people, because when you load in with 4 people, the total amount of damage you can get is around 6.5 to 7 million. Whereas in Atlantis Hard, the total amount of damage you can get if you load it with 4 people is 2.5 million. But it's also like upwards of 6 million if you use the altars. So keep that in mind. And especially if you're, going for damage and stuff like that, be using the altars, because one, you're going to get loot and you're going to get way more damage. So if you think you can clear Atlantis Hard with like by yourself, because personally what I did when I was grinding Atlantis Hard is I'd load in with 4 people, tell them to go AFK, and then I would just carry them through it over and over again. I got a bunch of damage. They got a free carry. So it was pretty much just free loot for them. So it was a win-win. Same with the Halloween event. I did a bunch of Halloween events because you can get a lot of damage from here, as well as carry 3 people through it. But to do both of those, to do the Halloween dungeon and the Atlantis Hard, you need to be able to carry 3 other people. And not everybody can do that. So the most reliable way is probably Snow Castle Infinite. It is the meta. at the moment for grinding damage. I just mentioned these other two ways because if you want to like be getting loot and grinding good amount of damage, that's one way to do it is Atlantis hard. But you know, you don't get access to it till 150 and not many people are 150. So, you know. So now time for what I did. I personally grinded just normally up to about level 150 and then I went to Atlantis hard. Once I went to Atlantis hard, I got 3 people to AFK for me. Now that might be really hard and it's kind of hard to find people that high who will go AFK. So it might not be plausible for anybody, but even doing it alone is all right. And when you're doing Atlantis hard, or when I was doing Atlantis hard, I was also getting a bunch of loot. So once I got enough loot, I then went over to Snow Castle Infinite and started grinding that out. That's what I personally did because I figured if I went into Snow Castle Infinite too early, I wouldn't be able to get up to that high of a wave because I didn't have a lot of health at that time. So I would just die. I'd get one shot past like wave 80. So I got loot up first while still gaining a little bit of damage. And then I went to Snow Castle Infinite and it really took off from there. I also did a bunch of Halloween dungeons and probably carried like well over 100 or 200 people through those. So that's where another large chunk of my damage come from. But doing that implies you can like carry. So, you know. Also some notes is that when you're in Snow Castle Infinite, unlike regular dungeons, it doesn't scale with the more players there are in it. So if you load in alone, wave 5 is just as hard as wave 5 with 4 people, right? So it's usually better to do the infinites alone if you're confident that you won't die. Now, if you load into an infinite and you're like, I don't know, I don't have that great of a mythic, maybe I'm a little lower level, maybe it's worth loading in with a friend because that way if you die, you'll just respawn the next round as long as they survive. But I suggest if you think you can do infinite reliably by yourself and you're confident, I would do it by yourself because the damage doesn't scale up. So if you do it with a friend, with another person, and the boss has 16,000 health, he'll always have 16,000 health, which means that 16,000 gets split between both of you. And you're trying to go up the leaderboard. You're not trying to split all this damage, right? Now, this is different with all the other modes. And that's why sometimes I suggest Atlantis hard as well. Because if you load into Atlantis hard with more than one person, it scales up. Like if you load into Atlantis hard by yourself, you can get a total of 1 million damage. If you load in with 4 people instead, you can get upwards of 2.5 million. So here's a big difference. So if you load into this, they go AFK. Now, instead of gaining 1 million damage, you'll be gaining 2.5 million. But, you know, kind of hard to find people to go AFK like that. So if you can't, you can't. But that's what I'd recommend. Also, this meta is likely to stay the same. It's not likely to change going into the next update. If they add Atlantis Infinite, then instead of Snow Castle Infinite, it'll more than likely now be Atlantis Infinite will be the new meta. But I don't really think that changes much. You just need to go from one to the other. It is a little time consuming, but that just depends on what kind of placement you're going for. If you're going for like top 1,000, really just do a few Snow Castle Infinites and you'll pretty much have it. I believe right now, as of making this video, there's only 4 days left on the leaderboard before it resets. So maybe if you're aiming to go for top 100 or top 1,000, maybe use these next 4 days to prepare to go for it and then go for it when you have more time. Because right now, it's almost over. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's 4 days, but I can check here real quick. Yes, 4 days and 11 hours. So not too much time. It's enough time if you like, say you're max rank right now and you were to pump out a few. This is me. I have 1.2 billion damage. And if you were to just crack top 100, you need 945 million. That sounds really steep, but trust me, if you're doing Snow Castle Infinite, it's not that steep. you can get like 100 million in about an hour probably. And just doing that basic math, if you do once a day for the entire time, the resets are 2 weeks usually. So if you do just one good snowcastle run a day, you'll have 1.4 billion damage by the end, and that'll probably be enough to crack top 100 if that's your goal. But the more you do it, the higher on the leaderboard you'll get. I could probably be higher than top 50. We also can't forget about loot. Loot's crazy important because when you get up into the higher waves, it gets really hard. Like when I'm on like wave 120, I've done like 40 million damage at that point. I'm getting like hit for like 1,000 health. So you need to be sure that, or like ready that when you get to the higher ranks, you might get one tapped. So consider upgrading your armor and trying to corrupt it before going in, because it gets really hard. Generally, it's a pretty good rule of thumb to try to go in with the best loot possible. And that's really all for today's video. To recap, you're going to want to get your level up, get a good element, and get good loot. Preferably upgrade it, get your health at least above 1,000 so you're not getting one tapped, and load into Snowcastle Infinite if you want to be completely optimal about it. But I've given you other ways to grind it as well, so consider those if you get a little bored just doing Infinite all the time. But yeah, that's all for today's video. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and yeah.